Hello everybody, good evening and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news as Erik ten Hag sends a warning to first team Manchester United players. The time could be up. There will be no more cushy contracts, no more comfort zone. Everybody is on trial after yet another disappointing and embarrassing result for Manchester United at the weekend. Welcome to the Members Club, by the way. We just had a new member in Draco. Good timing. But yeah, lots to get into in the show tonight. This is coming in from credible sources that there will be no more gift contracts handed out. We know that Manchester United have had that tendency in the past. Also, a couple of bits to pick up from, some of you may have not seen it today. We had an interview with Fabrizio Romano. It's been quite a busy day on the channel, actually. We had the morning show. Then there was an interview with Fabrizio Romano. Really interesting stuff about Van der Beek, Gakpo, transfers. And then I did the video with Ben Foster earlier, which gave us some really interesting insight into the goalkeeping, because I was sat with Ben Foster and a goalkeeping coach, and I wanted to get in about David De Gea. So we'll talk about that in a bit as well. So lots to catch up on the channel. If you've not seen it, we'll cover a little bit of that later, but do check those videos out on the channel. I suppose the first thing to say is, how are you feeling after yesterday? And apparently there was a story this morning coming out that Manchester United were going to have a free-for-all today. That is not like a Chinese buffet or all you can eat or anything like that. That is literally Ten Hag was going to sit them down, watch the game, go through the match yesterday, and basically allow people to have a free forum to say what they think, pro and negative. I've got to be honest, I retain confidence and support in this manager, and I think most of us are on the same page there. There were mistakes made yesterday. Definitely were mistakes made yesterday. In fact, just to hammer on that, I would just say that I saw this quote from Gary Neville where he said, "I don't think if you're analysing Manchester United's performance, you should be saying we didn't Casemiro start alongside McTominay. I don't feel like that was a mistake from Ten Hag at all." I don't know what Gary Neville's talking about there. I respect his opinion, but I think he's completely wrong there. What you're trying to say, that Scott McTominay had a good game and our midfield was good? The midfield cost us the game, Gary. Like, you can't say that not playing Casemiro was a mistake, because you don't know. If Casemiro played and he was worse than McTominay, obviously that makes sense. But you can't hypothetically say that it wasn't a mistake when the midfield were crap. So I disagree with that. I think there's a lot of stuff coming out. But for me, I think that the resounding feeling is that I just feel very, 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 very disappointed. I think we're losing badly too often. In the last 12 months, and it's barely been 12 months, I will forget some, but Liverpool, Leicester, Man City, Brighton, Brentford, now obviously Man City again. I think there's a couple more I've missed. Like, we've been absolutely destroyed. It's nearly once a month. It can't keep happening. A United fan base, or any fan base, shouldn't have to go into a game and be subjected to that on the regular. So I trust Ten Hag to turn this around, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But I don't trust these players. I don't understand how, and I'm repeating myself, but I don't understand how these players can be, told they're not fit to wear the shirt last season, come back in the shirt this year, start the season really badly, turn it around, get all the praise, and then drop the ball again. It's really difficult, and I personally think it's a mentality thing. I don't think some of these players are good enough to wear a Man United shirt. I think on their day they're good enough to wear a Man United shirt, but the whole point about wearing a Manchester United shirt is doing it week in, week out. And I think we've got a severe lack of players capable of doing that. And I think the big disappointment yesterday was the likes of Eriksen, Bruno, and a couple of others who, Malacia as well, Delo, players that we've sort of took a shining to this season, and I still take a shining to, but they sort of got dragged down to that level. I remember Paul Robinson, one of our moderators, he said this when we bought Bruno Fernandes, and he started off really well. He said, "My worry is how long will it take for Bruno to get dragged down to the level of these players that are already here?" And this seems to happen at United. A player comes in, they're really good, but it doesn't seem to take long for them to get dragged down to the inconsistency of everyone else is there. And Ten Hag has somehow got to lift that consistency up, hasn't he? And I think that's the big thing. So in relation to this free-for-all meeting today, why would you want to listen to anybody who was on the pitch yesterday telling you why it went wrong? It went wrong because they didn't switch on from the first minute. I think Ten Hag just needs to take control. Take control and do what you think's best. I wouldn't listen to this lot. They need threatening, basically. They basically need dropping, taking out the team and saying, look, You know, you might be on good money, you might think you've made it, but trust me, you haven't. And there's no queue of clubs trying to buy you, because I think that's the big thing with this squad. Who's queuing up to buy our players? Can you name 5 of our players that people would be queuing up to buy? I can't. I don't think there's 5 United players that big clubs would be queuing up to buy. Big clubs, of course people would want to buy some of those players, but big clubs, you know, I'm talking Man City, Bayern Munich, Liverpool, Real Madrid, Barcelona, PSG. Would any of those clubs want to buy any of our players if we said they're up for sale? Maybe 1 or 2, 3 at a push, and that ain't good enough. It reflects what the squad is, because they want consistent players who can do it week in, week out. Cheers from across the pond. I can accept a loss, it happens, but to be completely lifeless in a derby after the form they were in is dreadful. Fernando, Fernandez, thank you very much. I think you make a great point, and I do want your comments tonight, because I think that, you know, we're all feeling this, and it can't just be a one-way street. But look, it's bad when you lose to Brentford. It's bad when you lose to Leicester. It's bad when you lose to Brighton. But doing it in a derby or to Liverpool it's unforgivable. I don't get it. I just don't get the lack of discipline yesterday as well. The spatial awareness. I mean, Scholesy said it this morning, didn't he? I remember when we used to have fullback wingers who helped our fullbacks. Loved it. Because I said yesterday, I thought Anthony and Sancho were dreadful at helping out Delo and Malacia. And people were like, Anthony had a good game. And I'm like, we conceded 6 goals. How can those wingers have a good game when Man City were continually getting at our defence? You've got to work hard. The whole midfield let us down yesterday. But we move on. Bruno should be dropped, Jude. I'm not saying he should be dropped, but Jude's saying he's a member, why can't Bruno be dropped? I think Ten Hag has to start dropping some of these players. I'm not singling Bruno out, but I think he does have to start dropping some of these players to give him a kick up the arse. Anyway, I like this. This is coming in from James Ducker. James Ducker from The Telegraph. Erik ten Hag has told the Manchester United board not to give any new contracts until he has determined who deserves them. Basically, Erik ten Hag is keen on ensuring that players don't fall into comfort zones when it comes to new contracts. And I think this is big. I think this is really big, because it's coming. Sean Finch, welcome to the Members Club. It's coming from a journalist who's very credible, and it's exactly what we need to hear. Manchester United have handed out new contracts to crap players like confetti for years, and Ten Hag, if the club listen to him, just because Ten Hag wants this to happen, it doesn't mean it will happen, because the club are weird about contracts. But effectively what we're hearing is that Ten Hag doesn't want any new contracts, whether it's Marcus Rashford or Fred or Delo or David De Gea or Cristiano Ronaldo or anybody else or Luke Shaw or anybody to be given a new contract before the World Cup, because he wants to spend the next month and then the World Cup break analysing everything from the start of the start of July, pre-season, to the World Cup. That is what Ten Hag wants to do. He wants to analyse from when he took his first training session to the last game we had before the World Cup against Fulham. And he wants to spend the World Cup analysing all those players and then deciding to the board, give them a contract, don't give them a contract. I think this is great, because for too long, Manchester United, I mean, look, there's loads of examples. The worst example is Phil Jones has been injured for most of his career, and Manchester United give him a 5-year contract 3 years ago. That sort of nonsense and circus act has been going on for ages. And Erik ten Hag needs to put his foot down on this, because if he doesn't, it stops you buying players when they go, well, you've got Fred, you've got Phil Jones, you've got Wan-Bissaka. So it's a way for Ten Hag to clear the deck so that he can bring new players in, basically. If Varane is out for a while, could Aaron Wan-Bissaka come in at centre-back to play with Martinez, says Michael. Had to stop watching after the first half. What an embarrassment, says Ray. The worst part of the yesterday's game is the fact that nobody's shocked or surprised. 10 years ago it would be, but not now, says Thomas. Thank you for the super chat from Kevin. He says, might be time to have the hard conversation about Sancho and his future. We can have that tonight. And I understand why Erik ten Hag picked some players, but in a game of this magnitude, you need to pick your best. 4 or 5 of them was on the bench, says Tumbleweed. Well, I'm going to say something controversial here, actually, because I want to stick with this, but there's a good few things in there. First of all, Varane hasn't got a bad injury and may well be back for the Everton game. It's sore. It's not ligament damage. When you mention players being dragged down, you're right, Mark. It's happening to Sancho as well. I remember how good he was at Dortmund, says Rama. Yep, thank you. Was this United humbling needed? No, Panini, it wasn't needed because we'd had it against Brentford a month ago. We didn't need another humbling for a while. Man City are a very good team, but we'd have lost to anybody yesterday playing like that. And I've not heard anybody say that. The way we played in that game yesterday, most Premier League sides would have beat us. We were wide open. We walked out with white flags and we left the back door open. We would have been beaten by anybody yesterday. For some reason, Man United's attitude as a collective was not the same. And it was well worth watching the video with Ben Foster because I asked him about this and he basically said it's like a disease. It infects the whole team very quickly when you're not out there as a team. But I've heard a few people, I think Rio Ferdinand, Roy Keane, maybe a couple of others going on about Ronaldo. I think it's a cheap shot against Ten Hag, to be honest. And I respect those people, but I don't have to hang on every word. As I've said before, just because you're an ex-player doesn't mean you know the game better than us. You know, you don't need to be a horse to be a jockey. You know, that's not the way it is. I don't need to be a chef to know what a good steak tastes like. So I disagree with the Ronaldo argument, and it gets levelled at me all the time that I'm very biased towards Cristiano Ronaldo, and I am because I love him. I think he's a brilliant player, but I've got to be honest. This revisionary criticism that Ronaldo should have started the game, I wouldn't have started Ronaldo in that game. No, we were going to have none. We were going to have hardly any of the ball. We were going to spend hardly any of the time in Man City's penalty box. Why would I play Cristiano Ronaldo, who is a penalty box striker, against a team that we're not going to be a penalty box team to do? The right choice. Ten Hag had 3 choices yesterday. 4. 1, Rashford didn't work because they played 2 centre-backs. 2, Martial, was he fit enough to start? 3, false 9, Bruno, and then play Eriksen, McTominay and Casemiro. What did I say on my preview? I said play Casemiro and McTominay as a 2 to protect the back 4, Eriksen and then Bruno as a false 9. That's what I would have done. And Ronaldo would have been my 4th choice. I love Ronaldo. I want Ronaldo to play against Everton, but against Man City, I wouldn't have done it. And I think it's, you know, I've heard some of these ex-players say go and get Diego Simeone as our manager. Like the guy who loves 40% possession. I just think saying that Ten Hag should have started Ronaldo is a bit, you know, the horse has bolted. Let me come up with something ridiculous now that we've got stuffed. I don't think Ronaldo should have started the game yesterday, not against Man City. I'd start him in 99% of our games, but not that game. So when you mentioned players that have done that one, I still love Erik Ten Hag, but I'm sad that he didn't figure out that Man City was a clear exception to his winning team has to always play mentality, says Sky. I agree with that. I do think we need to calm down a bit. We all got a little carried away with a little run of form. It's going to be an up and down few seasons until Ten Hag builds the squad he wants. And I think, Sean, you make a really good point there. It was always going to be an up and down journey. But where I would disagree with you, Sean, and I think a lot of people would agree with me this, we know we will lose some games and we know we will go on some good runs. That's the inconsistency of a rebuild, and it is a rebuild. But what appalled me yesterday and hurt me deep in my soul was the fact that those players were switched off from minute 1. And as I say, I keep using this example, but I watched Aston Villa play Man City at Villa Park and they were on it from minute 1 with everything they had, organisation and effort. They're not very good, but they had that. Palace at the Etihad, effort and organisation. United yesterday put very little effort in and had no organisation, and that's on the players. I don't think that's on Erik Ten Hag. I've been a coach, I've been a player. I'm sure you've played 5-a-side or whatever. It doesn't really matter. If you go into it and you can't be arsed, you're going to get your arse smacked, and they did. James, welcome to the Members Club. So let's have a look at what else Erik Ten Hag had to say. This is from a senior source at Manchester United, from James Ducker in the Telegraph. Ten Hag is still in that phase of let's see how people are. Let's see what they're up to, how they adjust, how they handle pressure, how they handle not being picked, how they deal with different challenges. And this fits in with what I was just talking about there. Erik Ten Hag doesn't want new contracts handed out to players. He wants to assess his squad and make decisions. And if I was a Manchester United player, I'd be very, very worried. Because you don't know, and I don't know, how ruthless Erik Ten Hag is and how ruthless he's allowed to be. Can Eric Ten Hag be ruthless enough to say, I don't know, Jadon Sancho is not for me. He's never going to be for me. He's going to spend most of his time on the bench. If you can get a buyer, get rid of him, but he's not a part of my plans. I've seen enough. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I could have used Rashford. I could have used Bruno. I could have used anybody. But I'm just using Sancho in this example because I want to talk about him in a minute. Can Ten Hag be that ruthless? Would the club let him be that ruthless? I think there's a big question mark about that. I think Ten Hag can be that ruthless. I don't know whether the club would let him be that ruthless to remove a player like that. But I think this is good. I think this is good because that's exactly what that previous comment should be. Nobody should be safe. If I was Eric Ten Hag and I was speaking to those players today, and I wouldn't have done it after the game yesterday, I'd have said, get yourself showered, get yourselves home, get yourself in tomorrow. We'll talk about it because I tell you what, we all know that's not good enough. And I need a bit of time to have a look at it and understand everything that wasn't good enough. Because right now, I'm fuming. Now get yourself showered and get home. And then today, I would have said, we're going to sit down and we'll go through things tactically. So you better all have your pens and paper ready and listen. But I'm telling you now, I'm not using names because I think that's an escape clause. There's one or two players from yesterday I can give some respect to. I'm not going to give them names either. But the vast majority of you were appalling. You let yourselves down, you let your fans down, and you've let me down. And this is the second time this has happened in 2 months. I'm here to rebuild this football club. Now, I believe some of you can be part of that, but some of you are showing me that you can't. And I'm not afraid to put people on the bench or on the transfer list or not renew a contract and move you out. There's nobody in this football club that's safe. So if you think you are, and you think that's acceptable yesterday, have another think, because I'm not here to mess about. I'm here to be successful. That's what this job is. None of you are safe. And you're going to find out about that over the next few weeks, because I'm not having that again. I'm not standing on national TV against Pep Guardiola at the Etihad being humiliated like that again. It's happened twice. I've been 4-0 down twice in 8 weeks with you lot. Not having it again. Not having it again. This reputation of this club and what I'm trying to build is not having that again. So look inside yourselves and sort yourselves out. And now we're going to go through everything you did wrong. And they've got to have that. That's what I would have done. And I hope Ten Hag's done it, because nobody should be safe. But you look at what Pep Guardiola's done at Manchester City, and I said it yesterday, there's no way that Kevin De Bruyne knew who Sean Goater was when he was a kid. There's no way he knew what Man City was. He's gone to Man City because they paid him a lot of money. Does he act like a mercenary? Does he act like, I've made it, I'm on massive money? He's driven. Every minute of every game, those Man City players are on it. And they've got no attachment to Man City. Man City are a nothing club before they had money. They're not a club that you go, oh, they're my favourite team, that's my dream club. We are a club like that. Real Madrid, Barcelona, Manchester United. You've got that aura, you've got that fan base, you've got that history in the shirt. And yet Man City, who don't have that, and I'm actually praising them here, they can get players who will run and bleed and sweat for that Manchester City shirt week in, week out. Man United, with all our history, we can't get players to do that. It's recruitment, and we need to remove some of these players. This is the perfect opportunity to start Casemiro from now on. McTominay didn't deliver yesterday, says Edward. The problem is most players are safe. Ten Hag can't play top trumps like Pep and move players in and out till he gets what he wants, says Nick P. Yeah. Nick, I agree with you with this. I think you make a really good point here. How does Ten Hag act like Pep Guardiola? Well, you've got to have the freedom to go, you are not the right back I want. You're gone. You're not the centre-back I want. You're gone. You're not the centre-forward. I don't care. I don't care how many goals you've scored. I don't care how many Twitter followers you've got. I don't care how long you've been at the club. You're gone. I've seen enough. You're gone. But you need, for that to happen, and Pep's always had that. You know, Pep can get rid of Aguero a little bit early. He can get 4 or 5 right backs. To do that, you've got to have the people upstairs to back you. Pep Guardiola would fail at Man United, and he's the best manager in the world, because he would never be able to do what Man City have allowed him to do. We've got owners that will basically say, you go to them and you say, Wan-Bissaka's not the right player for me, I need to sell him, and there's an offer there. Nah, it's not enough. But he's not the right player for me. He's a good lad, but he's not the right player for me. Yeah, he's not enough. You'll have to get on with it. Are you having a fucking laugh? I'm telling you, he's not the right back for me to rebuild this football club, and there's an offer there. Why aren't you taking it? It's not enough, and financially it just doesn't work for us. So what am I doing with him then? Well, he's part of your squad. Okay, so there's an offer on the table that you don't like, and I'm telling you I don't want to use him, and you're telling me you're not taking the offer, and I'm telling you I'm not going to use him. What do you think's going to happen to his fucking value, you knobheads? Well, you'll need to start playing him then. So now you're telling me to pick players that I don't want here to keep the value up. But like, are you mad? But am I wrong? That is what's happening at United. We're keeping players that the manager clearly doesn't want because the club aren't getting the money they want for them. It's weird. It's weird. So I go back to what I've always said. There is no way. There's no way a manager can be truly successful at Manchester United with the current structure. Why is Erik ten Hag so static in his team selections? I thought he'd be like a modern manager who's more dynamic like Pep. He even benched Diaz for that game, says SK. Yeah, I mean, look, check out. I mean, I don't want to brush over that, SK. I don't want to brush over that. Ten Hag got a lot wrong yesterday, and I don't think he should be without criticism. But it's like the scales for me. Check out Kim Min-jae. He's a monster centre-back. Replaced Koulibaly at Napoli successfully. Cheap buyout cause. Hi, Mark. I think the issue with United is players like Rashford, McTominay, not because they're not good. It's their mentality. They've been here forever, says Harry. That sort of feeds in with what I was going to say. I think the criticism that you have for Ten Hag is correct. Yeah? Hello, I'm criticism of Ten Hag. Hello, I'm criticism of the players, right? So your criticism of Ten Hag is correct. But it's way down here compared to the criticism of the players because these players have been doing this for months, years. So Ten Hag did make mistakes, but how big I suppose what the question is, how much was yesterday on Erik ten Hag's team selections and tactics, and how much of it was on the players just downing tools and not being mentally with it again? And I think Ten Hag made some mistakes yesterday, but nearly all that team yesterday just weren't at the races. So, and what if I'm a manager, yeah? And I tell my team for the first 20 minutes to be compact, concentrated, and on it, and then they're not. Whose fault is that? Because they didn't do what they were meant to do yesterday, did they? And it's interesting what the person just said there about McTominay and Rashford. I'm not really up for individualising yesterday's performance because it was a collective mess. But where I would agree with you on that, and I don't think it's just McTominay and Rashford, by the way. I think you could add a few more names to this. Bruno Fernandes would be one. Fred. You've said McTominay, Rashford, Luke Shaw, Harry Maguire, Victor Lindelof, Anthony Martial, Jadon Sancho, Diego Dalot. You know where I'm going with this. These players, it's been so long since we were successful, genuinely successful. They don't know how to be successful. The only thing they know is inconsistency. They know they can beat a Man City or a Chelsea or a Liverpool, but they also know they can lose to Brentford, Man City, and everybody else badly. They are specialists through no fault of their own. Really, they've been coached this way over many years, and the club's been run in this way. Those players are indoctrinated in inconsistency and failure. That is their experience. If you've got a Paul Scholes or a Ryan Giggs or a Roy Keane or a Wayne Rooney in that first team squad, you might have had 2 or 3 bad years, but they know how to win a Premier League. They know how to win a Champions League. We've got nobody in that team who knows how to do that. In a Manchester United shirt, I think David De Gea is the only one who's done it, and it's 10 years ago. Ronaldo has done it in a previous life as a Man United player, but it's even longer. Casemiro and Varane have won things, but Real Madrid. So you're right when you've mentioned the names McTominay and Rashford, but there's a lot more of them than that. They don't know how to win. They need teaching how to win. But the problem is, some of these players are in their mid-20s. Some of them are in their late 20s. And Erik ten Hag is coming in trying to retrain the mentality of players that have been playing football for this club for years. So it's a very difficult job to do in 3 months, to change the mentality of these players in 3 months when they've been consistently embarrassing themselves for years. It's a massive job. Bagging says, thought Varane and Martinez were the best centre-back pairing in the league. And he's put a load of smiley faces there. It never fails to amaze me how idiotic people can be and how they happily publicly expose themselves as having zero football knowledge. Before yesterday, Varane and Martinez were the best centre-back partnership in the league. After yesterday, they're not. It's called... I don't know what it's called, actually. It's called... There's not one word for it. It's called things change. Varane and Martinez were the best centre-back pairing in the Premier League up until yesterday. And now they're not. Lionel Messi was the best player in the world one year. And then it was Cristiano Ronaldo. What I'm trying to say is nothing stays forever. Some things last for a month. Some things last for a year. Some things last for 5 years in football. But things change. And you're basically trying to individualise something. I don't want to individualise anything. And I said this quite rightly about Harry Maguire. If I'm Harry Maguire, I'm absolutely ecstatic I didn't play yesterday. Because if he'd played, if Varane had been injured yesterday and Maguire had played, loads of people would have gone in on Maguire, right? It's got nothing to do with the centre-backs yesterday. I'm seeing things yesterday... Look, it's well worth watching the football fill-in with Ben Foster, because Ben Foster used to play Premier League football up until this summer, and we had a goalkeeping coach on with us as well. And I purposely brought it up in the show that there are people saying that David De Gea should have done better on some of the goals. And it's worth watching the video, because he said, well, which ones are you talking about? I said, well, the cross for Haaland. He said, absolutely no chance. That's not for the goalkeeper to come and get. Look at the speed and look at the height of the cross. That's not for a keeper to go and get at all. I said, what about the Foden one? And he said, what, when he was offside, the sixth one where everyone thought he was offside? I said, yeah. He said, right, go back to the start of the game when they were doing some shooting drills against Edison from that distance and they were beating him every time. It's a brilliant finish from Foden. I said, okay. What about the cross that De Bruyne puts into Haaland and he stretches out? He said, who is he? Who's David De Gea then? Is he go gadget legs? How's he meant to come for a cross that's bending about 10 metres across from his goal? He says there's none of those goals are on David De Gea. He can talk about his distribution, but none of the goals are on David De Gea. So I would then say, how many of those goals are on the centre-backs yesterday? I don't think any of them really. I think most of Manchester United's problems yesterday came from the wingers not supporting the fullbacks and the midfield basically doing a really good hide and seek impression. There was runners everywhere. I just don't think it was on the centre backs yesterday. And I wouldn't be surprised if Varane's fit for Everton if we went and got a clean sheet against Everton and a clean sheet against Newcastle in our next 2 games. So I don't really have a massive concern about the back five. They've just conceded 6 goals, but if you know your football, if you haven't got a midfield, you're going to get battered, because I can be the best centre-back in the world and I can be playing with prime Vidic and we will still concede goals if we've got runners all over the place. You can't defend when you've got midfield runners coming at you. You can't, because you're thinking about the striker. You might be able to pick one of them up, but you can't pick up the runners that Man City had yesterday. Even Gundogan, who replaced Rodri, is coming into the penalty box. It was chaos. We lost that midfield and we lost it badly. Leicester are 3-0 up already. Oh my God. Can I do a tweet? Is Henderson... What's happened? Oh, I'll just tweet it. I've done it. I can't help myself. It's the banter of the Henderson fan club. It's well worth it. Henderson's not the answer for Manchester United. I keep saying this. If we're going to replace De Gea, let's go and get one of the best up-and-coming sweeper keepers out there. Let's not use Dean Henderson. They're 3-0 down after 35 minutes. Bloody hell. Jesus Christ, that's an annihilation, isn't it? It's an. But look, you know what? We're live having a chat, and I'm not watching that game, and I'm glad I'm not watching that game because it's over after half an hour. It's as bad as our game, but it's. I keep saying this, and the fortunate thing is that this community, we remember what we talk about. If we're going to replace David De Gea, which we probably will have to replace David De Gea, let's be honest, then it's not Dean Henderson. It's not Dean Henderson. I'm sorry. He is not the replacement for David De Gea. He is not the right man for David De Gea to be replaced by. We should go and buy a goalkeeper that, and we did the video over the international break, whether you want to go for a Sanchez from Brighton or a Lafont from France or Maignan from AC Milan or any other goalkeeper like that, let's do it. But it's not Dean Henderson. It's not Dean Henderson. And I'm not, I'm not crazy. I mean, I was on about this a few weeks ago. We're talking about I was talking about Barcelona. Talking about Barcelona from the 90s when they had Ronald Koeman and Pep Guardiola, and neither of them particularly quick, and they used to cover for each other. I mean, Pep Guardiola was more of a holding midfielder, but Koeman scored a ridiculous amount of goals as a centre-back. You'll be going, who's Ronald Koeman? He was the manager of Southampton. But he was a Dutch and Barcelona centre-back. And he scored in his career. He scored like over 200 goals as a centre-back. I don't think anybody will ever score that many goals. He was prolific as a centre-back because he used to take penalties, he used to take free kicks, but he also had an amazing shot, and he'd step out from the back four. And Pep Guardiola would drop in. And sometimes the system that was used by the Barcelona manager, he played them both as centre-backs. So, and neither of them were quick. So you'd go, well, how do you do that then? And basically, they weren't particularly quick, but they were the elite ball readers of the game. So they could read the game and not be in a situation where they were going to get exploited. They also had a goalkeeper behind them who was one of the best sweeper keepers there was, because that's how Barcelona wanted to play. So they couldn't get caught with the ball over the top. And they had quick fullbacks as well for balls into the channels. So, if this is how we want to play, then you've got to go and get a goalkeeper like that. But we don't really know how we're going to play under Erik ten Hag at the moment, do we? We've still got a very deep line. We're still playing counter-attacking football, and we're not camping ourselves on the halfway line or creating chances around the penalty box. So our evolution under Erik ten Hag is a long way off, isn't it, at the moment? Minnie says, we didn't lose the game because City played well. We lost because we were so bad. I agree with that, Minnie. I was driving down to do the video with Ben Foster this morning, so I had Talk Sport on, and I was listening to various people have their say on it. And I think a few people have said that, and this is the thing that worries me. A few people have come out and said that no one can live with Man City, and I think this is bullshit. I do. I think Man City will win the league, but I don't agree with nobody can live with Manchester City, because we wouldn't have lived with anyone yesterday. I think Bournemouth would have beat us yesterday. With that level of effort and mentality, we would have got beat by most Premier League teams yesterday. So I don't think Man City had to do anything yesterday other than turn up. It was like a practice game for them. And second half, they were basically on easy street. So Man City take the plaudits. I mean, Erling Haaland's unbelievable, but I don't think they had to work. I mentioned it this morning. Why is Diego Dalot? He was booked in the first 2 minutes, wasn't he? Dalot was booked in the first 2 minutes because I think Grealish knocked it past him and was getting away down the left-hand side. Why in the first 2 minutes at the Etihad is a left winger getting away from our right back near the halfway line? What were we doing? Why were we being countered by Man City, counter-attacked by Man City in the first 2 minutes, when we never? I can't remember us ever getting near their penalty box. So what were we doing? Why were we so? Why were we playing so high and exposed when we never got near their penalty box with the ball anyway? Countless times I saw De Bruyne or Foden or Bernardo Silva running at our back four and our midfield wasn't there, and I'm like, where are they then? They've gone for a piss because it wasn't like we were laying siege to their goal and they were counter-attacking, but we let them counter-attack us, and I couldn't understand what we were doing yesterday. The shape was all over the place. Remember the process, early days, but agree mentality needs to change, says Ricky. Yeah, and I think that some of the things that were coming out today are really encouraging, i.e. nobody's going to get a new contract till Ten Hag decides they need a new contract. Nobody's getting in a comfort zone because that leads to inconsistency. And effectively, during the World Cup, he's going to basically draw up conclusions on every player in relation to how they've reacted to being dropped, how they've reacted to being starting games, how they've reacted to losses, how many players have been involved in losses. So he's an analytical manager. So I think the World Cup's going to come really good for Manchester United because it's going to give Ten Hag a mini mid-break to go, these are part of my plans, these aren't part of those plans. But he's got to get that right. If I was Ten Hag and you were Ten Hag, you'll have your ideas. But if I was Ten Hag, I already know 5 or 6 players, and I'm not talking Brandon Williams, Twan Sebi, Phil Jones, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, those players that we know we've got to move on. I already know 5 or 6 players that I would move on from that team and they'd be on the list to go, and I'd already be saying to Richard Arnold, these players have got to go by next summer. And he'd probably go, you're having a laugh, but I'd go, no, they've got to go, mate. They're good players, but they're going to keep causing us losing games. They're not the right players for us, and you've got to start getting them out of this club. You've got to start putting the feelers out. Oh, I've only just bought some of them. I didn't buy them. Get them out. And I think that has to be allowed to happen. I don't think it can happen with these owners, but it needs to happen. Ten Hag has to be given. There's no point in any area of life if you are brought in to stop a sick. If you're brought in to stop a sick, if you're brought in as the captain of the Titanic and it's heading towards the iceberg, and they say we want you to stop us hitting the iceberg, and you say we'll turn the wheel. No. Why am I here then? Well, basically, we want you to try and avoid the ship from sinking by hitting the iceberg. He's got to be allowed to do whatever is to. We've been shit for 10 years, haven't we? Let's be honest, ladies and gentlemen. We've been crap for 10 years. Really crap. If it was as easy as turning a light switch to be good again, anyone could do it. It's very obvious to the entire fan base that to get Man United back where they need to be, you've got to make big, ruthless decisions. You can sign who you like, but it's like buying a brand new apple and putting it in a fruit basket of rotten apples. The apple will rot very, very quickly. You need to empty the basket out, disinfect it, let it dry, and then put the new fruit in. Because it can't rot then. You can just let it blossom and eat it and everything like that. We will never be where we need to be if a manager is not allowed to be ruthless. And to be ruthless, it's not just about getting rid of Phil Jones. You've got to look at that first team and go, you're a good player, but you only give me 50% of the time you're shit. You're a good player, but you're injury prone. You're a good player, but you only play well 25% of the time. You're a good player, but when you're on a bad day, we lose because you do nothing. Those players have got to go. So that's what Ten Hag needs to be allowed to do. And it could take 3 or 5 years, says Michael, but it will take forever. And Ten Hag will become a victim if he's not allowed to do it. And the best thing we've ever said about this is, how can a manager be successful? You want him to build a picture, but you're asking him to use Solskjaer's pieces, Mourinho's pieces, Van Gaal's pieces. You can't build a picture, your own picture, when you've got bits of jigsaws of other people's failings. You've got to be allowed to get rid of it. And somebody mentioned Jadon Sancho earlier. I'm a fan of Sancho. I like Jadon Sancho. I really want us to get him. I'm disappointed. I am disappointed. I'm sort of... Where am I at with Sancho at the moment? And it's well worth watching the video with Ben Foster because he said he'd drop him. I think against Everton, I would start with Anthony on the right, Ronaldo up front, and Rashford off the left. He may well start Martial because he scored 2 goals. But I think Sancho's got to go to the bench. Rashford's not a striker. Let's get him back on the left. I think most of his goals this season have come from the left. The Arsenal goal came from the left. Ronaldo would come on the pitch. So I think Sancho probably needs dropping. See how he responds to that. I really like Sancho, and I think he should be in the England squad, but there's a problem. There is a problem there. We're not getting the best out of him. And I've heard a few people say that he's just a Bundesliga player that can't play in the Premier League, which is a weird thing to say because he's actually English. I actually think the answer is not that harsh. I don't think it's that harsh at all. I don't think he's a player that can perform in the Bundesliga but can't perform in the Premier League. I think the problem is he's playing in the wrong system. Jadon Sancho is not quick. He's not explosive. He doesn't skip past people like Rashford can. He is a intricate, small space attacker. He's like Jack Grealish, basically. Grealish for Man City receives the ball in the final third. He doesn't get it on the halfway line and have to skip past players for pace. He gets it in the final third. He is one of those players that, if we're playing high up the pitch, on the edge of the box, patient build-up, like Man City, I think he'd thrive. I think Sancho doesn't suit our system at the moment because we're playing counter-attacking football. And everyone says, well, Ronaldo doesn't suit the counter-attacking system, and he doesn't, and he's on the bench. But I don't think Sancho suits this as well. Sancho's a good player when we get near the penalty box, but he's not a good player when he receives it on the halfway line because he's miles away from the goal and he's not fast. He's a possession-based player, and he's a very good possession-based player when you're in the final third. But we don't spend a lot of time in the final third patiently building up. We've got the players to do it. I think Eriksen can do it. I think Sancho can do it. I think Anthony can do it. But we've got to become a team that plays in the final third, and at the moment we're not that. So I'm far from giving up on Sancho, but I think he's struggling at the moment because we're not playing a system that suits him. And I mean, I don't know why Solskjaer bought him. I mean, Solskjaer religiously played fast counter-attacking football but wanted Jadon Sancho. It's like, did you ever watch him play for Dortmund? Like, that's not the way Dortmund really played. So, at this moment in time, he's not performing. What do you make of Ten Hag's reply on a question why world-class players don't want to join us, saying we already have world-class players? Well, we don't have world-class players, Wackass, but the manager of Manchester United really should be saying we've got world-class players because he needs to work on the ego. Look, everybody's different. Somebody needs to kick up the arse. Somebody needs to be told that they're world-class. I don't really care what Erik Ten Hag says about whether we've got world-class players or not. We know we haven't. We have, but I don't... Look, Cristiano Ronaldo is still world-class to me because his finishing is world-class. Rafael Varane is still world-class to me because he's a world-class centre-back. And I think Casemiro is world-class because, I mean, are we just going to say he's not world-class because he doesn't play for Real Madrid anymore? At Real Madrid, he was world-class and he won the Champions League 4 months ago. So I think those three players are world-class. There's others who have the potential to be world-class, but nobody else is world-class. And there'd be quite a lot of people at the moment who said, well, Ronaldo's not world-class, he's not playing very well. Casemiro's not world-class, he's not playing very well. So they're the only three that I think belong in the world-class category and can be world-class. I think we've got a few top-class players, but I don't think we've got anything more than that. Edwin says, Ronaldo world-class, haha. Mate, this guy's won the Ballon d'Or how many times? He's one of the greatest players to ever play the game. He was our Player of the Year 4 months ago. He scored 18 Premier League goals in the worst Man United side I've ever seen. Why is he not world-class anymore? Because he's not playing for Man United. What's the saying? Form is temporary, class is permanent. I don't think the evidence is there to say that he's not world-class anymore. Like, he literally was scoring goals a few months ago and people were saying he's world-class. I don't believe that the Ronaldo journey's over yet. There will be a drop-off, but I don't think we've seen it yet. I think there's a number of reasons why he's performing like he is at the moment. But, if you want to say he's finished and dusted, that's up to you. I'm not arguing it. You just won't make me say it. I don't believe that yet. I don't believe that the Ronaldo ability to score world-class goals as a number 9 is over. I don't. Zlatan's still scoring goals for AC Milan and he's about 52. I'm sure many people still say Zlatan's world class. So at what point does the world class thing stop? Because I don't think it stopped yet. How can Rashford be given another chance, says Jack Brown? He's been terrible walking around in another derby. You know what, Jack? I think you make a good point there. But I don't want to individualise things because I like Rashford. But I want to see Rashford back on the left-hand side. But you do make a good point. I did see Rashford walking around yesterday. And I have seen him walking around for about a year. And I don't understand why he is walking around. Is he got a problem with fitness? And I don't mean like injury. Has he lost? Because Rashford used to be full of energy. I think before he did his shoulder, Rashford used to be relentless. And he does do it in spurts. He's very, very fast. But it makes me laugh that all last season people said Ronaldo doesn't press from the front. And Rashford certainly doesn't do it any better. He's fast, but he doesn't have the legs to do it. He's not energetic. I think Martial's probably the best player we've got as a number 9 to press. But I'm not criticising Rashford there. I think he's a winger. I don't think he's a centre forward. So, I'd put Rashford back on the left. I'd go with Martial or Ronaldo through the middle and Antony on the right. And I'd try and keep some consistency there. I would like to see Martial and Rashford sharing the number 9 shirt. I think Martial and Ronaldo. Ronaldo can't play 2 games a week. And Martial is injury prone. So I think there's a way where you can be really clever with both players. You can literally say you're starting and after an hour you're coming on. And then in the next game you're starting and after the last half an hour you're coming on. And I think that would work quite well. Bourbon, welcome to the members club. Thank you very much. So look, I think we can go round and round in circles. The cold reality is that I think we will probably go on another good run now. And then at some point in the next month, we'll get smacked up again. We're averaging a smacking every month at the moment, aren't we? Brentford, August. September, we only played a couple of games. And right at the start of October, we get smacked up. So basically, August smacked up. September smacked up. So I'd say sometime between now and the World Cup, we'll get smacked up again. And that's what we're consistently doing at the moment. And until that stops, that's the next step, isn't it? We know we can go and win 3 or 4 games in a row, but can we stop this monthly annihilation? That's the next thing that we've got to do. I think he's got to establish. I think he's got to try and just get his best team on the pitch. And what would your if I say to you now, my best Man United 11 at the moment, and obviously I can't sign anybody, so my best Man United 11 at the moment, when everybody is fit, is De Gea, Dalot, Varane, Martinez. Probably, I mean, that's a tough one left back now. Malacia really let himself down yesterday, and I don't know what Ten Hag's. He might go for Luke Shaw. He might bring him back in. I don't know. So that left back's up for grabs. Midfield, you've got to get Casemiro in. You've got to get Casemiro in, and therefore you've got to get Eriksen in. And I suppose he's going to get Bruno in. So I suppose you've got to go Casemiro, Eriksen and Bruno as your midfield. Antony, at that price, and as a new signing, has to be given a chance on the right. On the left, it's Sancho or Rashford. Take your pick. And therefore, up front, it's Ronaldo or Martial. So, left back, Malacia or Shaw. Left wing, Sancho or Rashford. And then up front, Ronaldo or Martial. But the rest of the team, I think, takes care of itself. And we'll take it from there. And I thought it was very interesting it's very interesting to watch the interview Beth did with Fabrizio on the channel. There's some good videos to check out today if you've been at school or work. But he did mention Donny. And he said if Donny's not playing by January, he'll be asking to go. Donny's got to get himself fit. I still believe there's a player in Donny. Now, people don't have to agree with me about Ronaldo. Some people might say that's an even worse take about Donny. I still think there's an opportunity for Donny van der Beek. What is your injury, Donny? And why are you taking so bloody long? Get yourself back fit. I'm worried about Donny. He went to Everton and he spent most of the time injured. He's come back to United and he's injured again. Why is Donny van der Beek suddenly injury prone? He's hardly played for 3 years. Why is he picking up so many injuries? There's a real opportunity there. Eriksen was crap yesterday. Bruno was crap yesterday. If Donny van der Beek is fit, he probably gets on. there's a chance now. He's got to be fit for Thursday, because if he's not fit for Thursday, what's the bloody point? Now is the time. If you wait, if you're not fit for another week or two, Bruno and Eriksen might start playing well again, and then you've got no chance. It's got to. If I'm telling you, last chance saloon is such a cliche, but it really is the last chance saloon for Donny van der Beek. He's got to be fit for Thursday, and he's got to take his chance, because now is the time. The next month is your last chance at United. Get yourself fit and have a go. You know, Bruno's not tearing it up. Eriksen's had a bad game now. He's got to get himself back fit. He's got to get himself involved. And if he fails, he fails. But this is the time. He's got to do it. He's got to get back involved, and he's got to do it. Malacia is too young. Look, I'm not worried about Malacia, Jarry. I'm not worried about Malacia. If he goes back to Luke Shaw, I know it'll piss a few people off, but I'm not bothered if Luke Shaw comes into the team and plays well, because I think Malacia has already proven that he's a really exciting player, and maybe he's not quite ready yet. Maybe he's a player that comes in for a few games, gets taken out for a few games. We're fine at left back. Like, if Luke Shaw comes in and does badly after a couple of games, you bring Malacia in. Giving those two players the opportunities is fine. Maybe we're not at that point where either of them are the established left back, but that's fine. I'm not really bothered about that. I'd say the same about Sancho and Rashford, and the same about Ronaldo and Martial. I don't mind having rotation in 3 positions. We don't have to have a definitive best 11 in every position if you've got good cover in each position. And I think left back, left wing and up front, we're fine if everyone's fit. You know, I've said it before. I mean, if Harry Maguire gets back fit and Lindelof's fit, they're not the worst players in the world to come in if Varane gets injured or Martinez needs a break. But for this season, next longer term, I think we need to change things up. But yeah, I think the roller coaster will continue. We will have ups and downs, but we've got to stop yesterday happening and Brentford happening. Ten Hag is a new manager that we all want to do well. He's been 4-0 down twice in 7 Premier League games at half time. So work that out as a statistic. It's so 6 is 15. He's, for over 10% of his Premier League games this year, he's been 4-0 down at half time. It's not good, is it? So, and that's because the players are giving up or not following what he wants because they've got a weak mentality. We've got to stop that. I don't mind losing if we give everything and we lose to a better team, but we can't be losing like that on the regular, and we are at the moment. I've never known this. I've never known Manchester United get beaten so regularly, so badly in my life. Even the early days under David Moyes and Van Gaal and Mourinho, we weren't getting beat 4, 5, 6, every month. It's becoming epidemic. It's becoming a real issue. And that's a player problem. It's not a coach problem. Rangnick got beat by 4. Solskjaer was getting beat by 4. Now Ten Hag's getting beat by 4. That's not... Whatever you think about Rangnick, whatever you think about Solskjaer, whatever you think about Ten Hag, that's not manager specific. If sometimes you will get beat 5-0 because you've tried everything, but the team you're playing are just on it. We're getting beat 4-0, 5-6 because we're just not turning up. We're not turning up. And that's not about the manager. That's about the mentality of the players. The fans need to realise this. It's straddling 3 different managers with 3 different ideas. And the same set of players, or a core of those players, are continually getting smacked up. That's the mentality in the players. Ten Hag has got to change the mentality of those players or remove those players because it's infecting his signings. Martinez played yesterday. Anthony played yesterday. Eriksen played yesterday. They got dragged down to that. So that's a big job. We know we're going to lose games because we're not good enough. But that is not that sort of thing yesterday. That happens to that doesn't happen to many teams. That doesn't. Southampton's a team that I think every now and again are going to get whacked up, but that shouldn't happen. It doesn't necessarily happen to teams like Everton or Fulham. They don't regularly get beat every month by 4 or 5 goals, and we are. That's a real issue. It needs sorting out quick. Anyway, look, thanks everyone for watching. I've enjoyed the show tonight. I think that's a completely different problem to losing games. There is a mentality issue within that squad that they seem to be, on a monthly basis, getting absolutely annihilated. That's a mentality issue within that squad, and that's a big thing for Ten Hag to change. Can he change it? He can train them. He can get them to play better football, but can he get it into their head that when you go 1-0 down early in the game, to not just down tools and get absolutely annihilated? That's a mentality issue, and it's going to take time. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll be back tomorrow, of course. There's loads of content to check out on the channel. There's an interview with Fabrizio Romano that Beth did. There's my little chat with Ben Foster, which was brilliant, about the goalkeeping as well. Really well worth a watch. 2 goalkeeping experts talking about how people do not know how to analyse goalkeeping. In fact, the goalkeeping expert was absolutely quite biting and said, oh yeah, because Gary Neville knows what goalkeeping's all about. And it's true. Every pundit on the telly isn't a goalkeeper. And they're telling us things about goalkeepers, and it's a specialist position. I actually said to them that I thought that Lloris made a mistake when he palmed it in, and he said, no, if you're a goalkeeper, you know Lloris hasn't made a mistake. The ball's too close to his body for him to flip it out. He's done what he can, and it's come back in there. And I found it fascinating because Jamie Carragher and Gary Neville telling us about goalkeeping, they're not goalkeepers. So it was very interesting. It's well worth watching the Ben Foster thing. If you want to get your merch, we do deliver worldwide. Links in the description as well. Take care, everyone. Thanks to new members. Thanks for supporting